Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Pabs, a rising VTuber and an artist. Today we're going to be working on a comic page. We'll be handling the shading for the rest of this. There's probably a few things I still need to do. Oh yeah, no, there's a lot. I'd say this thing is like 40-ish% of the way through. It's not at a bad pace, but it could definitely still use some work. Also, I am going to be doing a couple of things, so hang on. Use outline. Hang on. Select color, black, okay. Outline size, let's make it a little bit bigger. So, I've been playing around with stream.bot or streamer.bot. Yeah, streamer.bot. And I've been doing a few redeems that'll help get the auction underway. So hopefully these will be not too intrusive, but ideally we'll be able to test them out at least a little bit sometime. So once we get a couple of people in here, we might try out the one that's like for the auction. But for the time being, you can try out using the 1 point rice bowl redeem and see if that actually does anything. Now, if my calculations were correct, what that should do is that it should provide a count on the screen, that big 0 up there on the top right, that should flip it up to 1. And if it does not do that, well, I'm not sure what I'll do if it doesn't do that. I might be a little bit out of luck. My dearest, sincerest, and most profound wish is that I will not have to learn to do any coding to do the stream. But that seems like a more and more unrealistic prospect every day. I don't know. I'm built tough. I can probably learn how to code or something. I would prefer not to, but I'm willing. Oh, okay. So that did not increase the number. Fascinating. And should increase it by 1. Huh. Okay. We didn't do that. Yeah, I see somebody. I see somebody added the rice bowl. All right then. For the time being, let's get rid of that. I'll go back in there and check it out, but hopefully that will be available for Thursday for us to work with. Right. Something I wanted to do for the background here is actually to add a little bit of a thingy like this, like an explosion effect radiating from the hole in the tent right here. And that way it kind of shows that the light is kind of pouring out of the tent. It's also just good for emphasis, I think. How's that look from a distance? Needs to be more solid. That's one of the main reasons that I don't like doing cross-hatching stuff too much. I deploy it, like, it's my first instinct because when I'm drawing, I'm very used to using, like, pen and paper. So cross-hatching is a very easy way for me to do on pen and paper. But when it gets to digital stuff, it just becomes much harder because either the lines are thicker and any gaps feel weird, or I don't know. Maybe it's just something about like the tactile sensation of the pen and paper that makes it easier for me. Could also just be the size, right? There we go. That makes it look nice and explodey. while we're at it, here's what let's do. I'm not sure how to handle the shadows on the building here, because I feel like unless I give them like a little bit of a gradient, they'll end up acting strangely. Yeah, so maybe just using a gradient to do the shading for this one will be the way to do it. I don't know, something bugs the heck out of me about using gradients, though. What if I had, like, just the barest smidgen? It wouldn't make any sense, but just having the barest smidgen of light coming in from here? No. No, okay. Also, I should turn off my night light. I forgot to do this before stream, and it comes back to bite me every single time. Oh, good Uncle Robin. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for your hard work. I'm Paps, a rising VTuber and an artist. We're doing a little bit of work on a comic over here. How are you? / shout out. Good Uncle Robin. What was your gang up to? How have you been? Archers, ready the arrows. Oh, God! Are those for me? Please, have mercy. I'm a martial arts user. I can't compete with arrows. All right. Well, you're free to raid the village. You're free to pillage the village as you please, but you'll have to get through me first, which will be fairly easy. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. You're free to help yourself to the snacks in my cupboard. You want to follow? Thank you. I'm glad to hear that you like my energy. I like your energy too. You feel it feels very pumped. Speaking of energy, if you're feeling a little bit tuckered out from your own stream, feel free to keep going, or you know, if you want to stay, you're always stay in chat. You're always welcome to do that. But if you feel like tapping out, 100% cool. Finhilly explosive rounds and not arrows. Explosive rounds, huh? I know that they developed at some point. The military tried to make something called like a gyrojet round, which is supposed to be some kind of explosive mini rocket, basically. I don't think they ended up being very successful, like a lot of the weird stuff that was invented at that time. Like I remember that apparently caseless ammunition was going to be the big thing at that time, and everybody was like, "Yo, caseless ammunition though, pretty cool, right?" And everybody agreed that it was pretty cool, but it turned out to be very impractical. It was still very cool, though, to clarify. Right. What do we need to do next? I kind of lost my place there for a minute. I need to add the shading on this building now. Keep in the background while I go unwind and eat. Enjoy the stream. Thank you very much. Enjoy your meal. Yeah. The other day, somebody told me this super crazy story about this one rifle, about like the journey of this one company making rifles called like the Accuracy International or something, who were making rifles for the British. But the problem is, like, they weren't like a company. They were like three dudes in a shed who wanted to make guns, and they heard about this contest that the government was making, and they were like, you know what would kind of slap though if we entered that contest and won it somehow. And you know, I imagine at that point they were like, yeah, let's do it, in a kind of night of drunken revelry and poor decisions. And so then what ended up happening is that they did in fact submit the rifle for the competition, and to their own amazement they won, which means that they now had to produce a lot more. And they got very nervous as well, because I remember that apparently a bunch of the people from the military were like going to come and visit and see, like, check on the progress of the rifle. So what they did is that they rented out this entire little workshop and put a bunch of the rifles that they were making in half finished states and a bunch of tools on the table, make it look good, you know. And then when the actual army people came visiting and were like, oh yeah, I see your group is out for lunch. I see. You know, they managed to kind of spin it that way, like, oh yeah, no, the factory is mega busy, but everybody is just out for lunch right now, so don't worry about all that. And you know, kind of following the suit of the alleged workers in the facility, they also went to grab lunch with the army guys, and the army guys were like, "Yeah, no, we were pretty ready to give you this whole thing, no issues noted, but we just needed to make sure that you weren't like secretly three guys in a woodshed just making guns for the hell of it, you know." God, what a stunning display! It's not even like I want to call that failing upward, but that's not even what that is. They never failed to begin with; they just kept going up. By all accounts, they succeeded spectacularly, just in a way that was not very convenient to them. Questions. Do you want very good legal advice? Shoot your shot. Why not? Get a position there and gain their trust, and every month they will deposit money into your bank account, and after a few years, you will be rich. Damn. I hadn't thought of that. That's a good life hack. You should keep that one under your hat. Legal advice from Nominal. You know. What they don't tell you about this life hack is that it does take time. You know, like everybody says that you know, every single way to make money. There's no such thing as an easy way to make money in this world, right? Not even if you're running a hustle as good as the one that you've proposed. Unfortunately, I do think that it does sound like that one will take a fair little bit of time to bear fruit. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't very good at like the legal courses in university. I was I was what was I good at in university? I wasn't bad at anything really, but I got some good stuff going on some accounting courses, and I learned that apparently when you buy land, normally when you buy something big, something that can like bring you money in the future, right? Like an asset, right? Like if you buy a truck, you say, okay, this truck will probably last me like 20 years. And so what you do is that for every year that you spend operating that truck, you need to write down the value of that truck by like its original price. So like if you got the truck for like zero, oh, I'm an electrician, not lawyer. I'm technically not an accountant either. But I do like talking about this because it's one of the funniest things that almost always happens. So usually when you buy like a truck, like let's say you buy a truck for $20,000 and you expect that the truck will last you 4 years because you're a rough driver, you don't take any guff from nobody, and you cut people off in traffic. You expect that the truck will last you a bit over 4 years. So you're like, all right, This truck will last me 4 years. So for each year, I will need to take away $5,000 away from the value of the truck to kind of reflect the kind of wear and tear that the truck has suffered under my operation. And what's interesting is that is one of the few assets that doesn't need to be depreciated, and in fact, you should not ever depreciate it, is land. Land just does not lose value in your books. It just stays there. It's very static. So that's why if you ever have somebody having an accounting problem and they have begun depreciating their land, get out of there. They have no idea what they're doing. God. I remember I even tried to get like a QuickBooks license. Like, do you know the accounting program QuickBooks? Have you heard of like TurboTax? The same company that runs that, Intuit, also does an accounting program called QuickBooks. And you can actually get certified for it. You can become a certified QuickBooks operator. And fun fact, you don't actually need an accounting degree to do that. You can just get a QuickBooks certification and be like, yeah, no, I know how to use QuickBooks. I think you do need to renew it, but like other than that, you can just get it for free. You don't have to pay any money to like enroll in the courses. You can just take the courses online and you can learn how to use it. Have legal advice on how to do tax evasion? Now, do you mean tax evasion or tax avoidance? Because one of those is legal and the other one isn't. My tax evasion advice is just always never make money. Evaluation. Yeah, I heard they're playing those evaluation movies at theaters again. Yeah, the end of Evaluation, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Round watercolor brush. I need to make this a little bit smaller. But yeah, hit me with it. What's your advice? Don't pay your taxes. No taxes in prison. Actually, do people in prison still have to pay taxes? I'm pretty sure they do. Or at least they probably still need to file their taxes. I'm not 100% clear on that. Given everything that I understand about prisons, you probably do still need to file your taxes in there. God, the legal system. I mean, I guess once you're in there, there's really no impetus to keep filing them. Like, you're gonna be in. You do? Yeah. Like, at the same time, though, I feel like once you are in prison, that kind of like doesn't necessarily discourage you, but it does like make you kind of scratch your head wondering if you do it. Like, what are they going to do to you if you don't pay your taxes in prison? Like, what are they gonna do that they haven't done already? Hang on, let me Google this. I want to actually learn because I feel like this is important for understanding like prison abolishment. Do you need to file taxes in prison? This might also change from country to country. Okay, signs point to yes so far. Especially apparently if you earn if in part like especially for the time you weren't in prison throughout the year, you do still need to file taxes for that. Most incarcerated people have in-prison jobs that pay a very small amount of and sometimes no money. So most facilities pay you by putting credit in your commissary account. Because these amounts are so small, prisons often don't issue a 1099 MISC or W-2 form that an employer might usually give to you. However, they still count as taxable income to the IRS. In most cases, this income won't be enough that you'll have to file a return. However, if your income exceeds $12,000 or $24,000 for a married couple filing jointly, God, that'll be a complicated situation, you may have to. If your income exceeds $12,000, it's probably because you earn income from outside the prison. Maybe you're earning income from interest, annuities, or a retirement account. This income counts when you're in prison too. Dude, prison sucks. So yeah, you do still need to file taxes while in prison. So don't go to prison. Don't do that. Yeah. That's messed up. Hold on, something about these shadows isn't jiving. I'm just gonna full send this. Hold on, that doesn't look like anything. Need to make it thinner and add more of them. What happens if you don't pay taxes in prison? Apparently, you go into tax debt, which is that they. Well, I think it sounds like what I think it's about like what it sounds like. You're in debt for you're in debt to the government for not paying your taxes, and you have to pay them back once you're out. At least that's what I assume happens. This is just one website source, and the answers may vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But broadly speaking, if you're in prison, you probably don't make enough money to, or get into like half taxable income. The U.S. is cool because like in most cases, if you don't make past a certain amount of money, you don't actually need to file your taxes. Like the website said it was around $12,000. And yeah, like in Canada, for example, I know that they have to file their taxes even if they haven't made much money or any at all. If you don't pay, you eventually go back to prison. Yeah, but like at that point, I feel like you're just digging yourself into a perpetual hole, right? Doesn't sound worth it to me. I don't know. What is. What do they do with people whose entire motive for a crime is to just go back to prison? They probably have some kind of special situation for them. I mean, you say no taxes, no problems, but the problem is that the taxes are still technically there, being a problem. Like the taxes are still very much present. You're just kind of ignoring them. That sentence, I doubt it'll get that serious. Unfortunately, in most cases, people are. Oh hell nah! Robot detected. Speaking of prison. Hang on. I think I just blocked them, didn't ban them. And now my chat box has become immaculate. Nothing turns me into that Gabriel guy from Ultrakill faster than seeing a bot message in my chat. I go from like, wee, robot funny, I love robot media and cartoons, to machine turn back now. It is just like a 180 switch. Hmm. Going back to what we were talking about, though, I do know back in like Victorian England or whatever, debtor's prison was in fact a real thing. I know that because I read Great Expectations in high school. What a hilarious book Great Expectations is. Great Expectations was super hard for me to get through initially, but then like once stuff started hitting the fan, I got way into it. Hmm. Should I add some more shadow to this? Maybe I can use the grass texture for that. I do still need to add the grass texture. Yeah, okay, let's do that now, actually. All right, let me see how we can do this. Select color gamut. Grab this one. Now it's my favorite. I can't ever get into like building minis or stuff like that because I will almost certainly become obsessed with making like terrain and such, and I will have no space in my house for that. That grass is so small and cute. Wait, no, I wasn't there like a yeah, there was like a wheel tread thing happening here. Hang on. And how do I there we go. Man, it was really worth it to just make Hawk disappearable so I can see what how exactly I did this part. Okay. I think what might help here is to use a vector layer. Let's do that. Also like a small watercolor brush, maybe. Or maybe like one of those interesting looking oil brushes. Actually, never mind. This one wins. All right, and this goes from the second tent here. I gotta angle this right so I can do this comfortably. Hold on. If I got this right, then maybe I can just kind of keep going with this one. Mm-hmm. It's weird. This brush feels like it's weirdly heavy. Like it's like thick, right? It's like putting a spoon through a vat of construction glue. All right, now we just gotta. Uh-oh. Hold up. Why is that not? There we go. Good morning, night, Mr. or Mrs. whatever creature you are. I'm a bag of rice. Thank you for the follow as well. If you're heading out, have a great day. I hope to see you again some other time. I will return. All right. Catch you later. Still crazy to me that you need to pay taxes in prison. Like, is your life not bad enough already in there? I don't know. I feel like it's a horrible idea for a model of society, right? Like, it's not a good idea to just like give people like exemptions on pure merit, because then that pretty much ensures that the only people who receive those exemptions are the people who will abuse those exemptions. But like, I feel like if you're an astronaut or something, I feel like you shouldn't have to pay taxes anymore. You are in fucking space. Why would the IRS ever beef with you? I'm going to the one place that hasn't been invaded by the International Revenue Service. Space. All right, there's 1, 2, 3 paths, and I betcha if I just copy and paste. Hold on. Well, I can't just copy and paste them right now, but I can do that in just a second as soon as I finish laying these other tracks. All right. Don't tax the rich, tax the people in prison. Absolutely the reverse of what we need to do. You've got it backwards. Wait, put the rich in prisons and then tax them. If you're willing to settle on this compromise, we have a deal. Hmm. What brush did I use that just let me do this? Because duplicating it like that has kind of turned out a little bit ass. All right, here's what let's do. There's 2 trucks. Okay, 1 truck and 1 excavator. That have tracks leading out from there. Okay. So let's make this be the truck's tires and this one be the excavators. Okay. The second one will probably end up somewhere here. Why is this so much easier from that other perspective? Well, maybe it wasn't easier. Maybe it was just as hard, and I just forgot about it since this was probably like months ago. God, how long has it been since I finished page 2? Definitely a few months. Probably not years, but like getting up there. Also, the resurgence of Dune memes on Twitter have gotten me somewhat motivated to watch that movie at last. I was, by all accounts, expecting the movie to not be very good, but apparently it's kind of fire. I was pretty interested in the book's world building at first, so I am a little bit curious about how that panned out. All right, let's see. Grassland. This is my shit. God, this grassland texture makes me a little bit nostalgic. I was checking out some of the earlier, some of like the panels from Dragon Ball during the Namek saga, and I have a follow up question for this, but I always look at the grassland and how it's textured in Dragon Ball. I don't know. Akira Toriyama has a good talent for understanding how to give you an idea of a location with as few details as possible. You know, you got the forest, you have like the deserts, the different plateaus. They communicate a sense of place without like distracting from the action, and that's a very important skill to have, especially for like an action comic. Remember when Vegeta just ripped up that patch of grass for no goddamn reason? What was his problem, frankly? No, that's too much. That's too much. I was trying to do something with the buildings here to make it more obvious that they're casting a shadow, but it's not working. God, I saw a tweet from Grimes talking about how like she was watching Dune 2 and she saw a lot of parallels between Paul and her own baby, whose name I think is just like X now. Like they've settled on just calling the baby X. I even forgot the kid's gender. My bad. But honestly, if you I don't know, like I feel like if it's gonna happen within our time, it's probably gonna happen because of those two doing something. I don't know who like the parallel version of friggin' oh, I see where I put the grassland. Like, is Bill Gates' kid gonna does Bill Gates have children? He definitely has kids, right? Let's set the X baby to in a fight with one of them. Let's see where they take it. That was straight up a Gravity Falls bit. God, I forgot how much of that show I actually watched. But Baby Fights was definitely a bit in Gravity Falls. I recall this clearly. Yeah, that should be good for texturing the grass on here. I'm not too worried about that anymore. Let's take a look at this panel. Okay, first of all, did I remember everything? Okay, we got the buildings, we have the sandcastle, we have the other building. Okay. Maybe just a little something on Horatio's nose over here. I forgot that this isn't the panel where I shade Horatio. That would be this one. There we go. Just the barest hint of like a of depth for the nose plate. All right, let's check out. Let's do the characters first, and then we'll do the fields. Actually, this works quite well too, because this way I can add a little bit of shadow to kind of show Hawk's perspective. I saw a very helpful infographic the other day showing like the most basic types of shading that there were available. Well, not even shading. Okay, it was more like the most common and most. It was basically like a bunch of different comic panel compositions that just work. And I was very interested in these. I don't know. My approach to learning art is much less about fundamental. It's very much a movement over fundamentals kind of thing. Like I've picked up some fundamentals over time, but it has and probably always will be mainly focused on the movement. By which I mean I always like to learn how to do it. Like I basically have built up my knowledge of art by figuring out tricks and then trying to apply those tricks in ordinary situations. Like I'm basically like a small library of art hacks, plus some fundamentals sprinkled here and there. Well, it's not like like anybody else is much different, right? Everybody learns because they want to figure out how to do something most of the time, and then they just figure out what it takes to get from point A to point B, and they along the way they understand some things that they can do. I don't know. I feel like I had a very strange experience being like a kid who was raised with art tutorials before like content culture became a huge thing, right? So I was watching freaking Homestuck fan art speed paint videos, try and understand the basics of shading. But now you have like a dude with like 5 million subscribers being like, "Your art is bad," and I'm going to show you why it sucks. And it's just like objectively some of the most weak sauce advice you've ever heard in your life. I don't know. I've never seen a video. I've never like finished watching a video like that. It's always been like I've always tried to like check out art videos that are made by somebody who's like, yeah, if you want to learn how to do this on CSP, just check this out. There needs to be like some kind of program that lets the people for fund basically like YouTube University, but for everything. Like there needs to be some kind of initiative that we can contribute to fund a WikiHow translation of YouTube. No more bullshit 15-minute long videos with 5 ads interspersed between them. No more content culture garbage. No more waiting 5 minutes for the guy to finish talking about his recent trip to Hawaii before he actually gets to explaining what the video is about. I fucking forgot her jetpack. I knew something felt off here. God, it's good for me to yap every now and again because, well, no, I never stop yapping, but it's good for me to yap constantly and think about things really hard, because then that's the only time that I notice things like this. I freaking forgot her jetpack. My fault. Let's just do it all on the shading layer. I don't care. Okay, paint this. Okay. We just gotta... there should be some kind of way we can just sort of... What I'm trying to figure out is like how the lighting would hit the chevron on the back here. Whoops, my fault. I forgot that we're currently working on only one layer. Yeah, no, that looks weird. I'm just gonna make it solid. Right here in the middle. Just like a donut. Wait, no, that's the opposite of a donut. Just like a pan de yuca. God, I need to make pan de yuca again. It's been a while since I've made some, and I'm pretty sure the Swiss cheese from the last time I made some has gone... Well, I don't know if... It's not Swiss cheese, it's Parmesan. I'm not sure if Parmesan can go bad, so to speak, but I'm not about to mess around and find out. Yeah, there's one thing I don't like, it's playing stupid games to win a stupid prize. Especially not when yucca starch is so difficult to come by. Like if this was just normal flour, yeah, sure, why not? I might mess around a little, but since this is like the good stuff, I gotta be a little frugal with it. I gotta make a show of being a little frugal with it. Let's make this shrink by 3 pixels. Okay, put this here. Actually, yeah, filling this out completely looks good. Might as well add some more shadows on top of the grenade here. Nah, a tip that I heard about today is that you shouldn't make too many small shadows, which actually gives me an idea for how to do this. Need to remember that I'm doing this all on one layer. Above all things, that's critical to remember. I know in Shotokan Karate, they have like this chant that they do every single time after, before slash after slash either or they train, where they chant out like a number of the beliefs of the school. And what I find really cool about that chant is that it has every single one of the beliefs of the school is preceded by saying like something, the equivalent of being like, first off, right? Like, first off, have a pure heart, something like that. Then the second one is, first off, always be diligent. And the purpose of that is to kind of communicate that none of them are more particularly are more important or less important than the other. All of them come first, so to speak. I thought that's a cool detail. If you want to look at it another way, it's very much the equivalent of like the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about a fight club. The second rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. God, remember how many memes there were of that movie and how it was like disproportionately high compared to the number of people who actually understood the ethos of that movie? Like I remember I was seeing first rule of X memes, don't talk about X. Second rule of X memes, don't talk about X. I remember seeing clones of that all over the place, well up until like 2010. When did Fight Club release? 1999. People have been misinterpreting this movie for well over 2 decades. That's crazy. You know, as cool as it is to feel clever for understanding narrative motifs and themes in a work without needing like assistance from the author, like there are some works where the themes and the narrative kind of come up very naturally over the course of the work, and when you notice them, it's like like you feel proud of yourself because you have exercised your kind of critical thinking and media literacy. But then sometimes the writer is like, I know people who use subtext and they're all cowards. And so you get like some of the most on the nose, impossible to miss, most unambiguous writing ever. And then you still have people misrepresented, and you're like, well, where are you listening? Truly, where are you? I don't know. I try not to be a hater about how some people enjoy stuff, right? Like, let people enjoy things. Yes, 100%. However, thank you for the rice fees. However, at some point you need to understand that it's that like the lack of willingness to engage with the possible deeper meanings of something is also maybe not depriving you of joy, but it's certainly kind of ignoring an aspect of something you love, which feels like a weird thing to do for something that you actually love. Granted, there is a difference between like being open to interpretation about what something is about and also thinking about its themes. Like there are some people who understand the themes of something perfectly, but they just don't want to hear interpretations of that. Or like they understood what they wanted from a work, and they kind of don't need anything else. And I guess that's also good. I don't know. You've engaged with it in like a more on a deeper level, so I think nobody is gonna like smack your palms for that. God. This is mainly because I saw some people talking about Signalis on the timeline the other day, and some of them were being like, well, because of all the fan animations and fan content, I thought this was a cute game about like a robot who loves her wife very much. What is this fucking Silent Hill bullshit? Like like they didn't see it coming, and that's kind of like, hmm. On the one hand, I will admit that like when I was doing my playthrough of Signalis, I was a little surprised that we didn't actually get to see Ariane very much at all, and I thought everybody was just fucking tripping or they had seen a different ending than I had. But then I got through, I got to the point where you actually see Ariane, and you're like, oh, I see, okay. It is also kind of funny seeing Elster be put into these groups of different like survival horror protagonists. Like I've seen many people group her together with like people like Isaac Clarke from Silent Hill, from Dead Space. My apologies. I need to play a Silent Hill game at some point. It's too influential for me to be like, yeah, no, I don't need to play that. Like everybody and their mom talk about Silent Hill. It's like the experience they've had with that game. So I don't know. I feel like I'd be missing out. It's the same reason why I watched a lot of like old movies when I was a teenager. I'm like, okay, so this is like what shaped thinking for a while. The only pitfall with that is that sometimes you are prescribed something, you are given to believe that something is peak because everybody from like a certain age group that watched it says that it's peak, but then other times you realize that the reason they thought it was peak is because like it only came out when they were like teenagers and they haven't watched it or revisited it since and only really participated in the pop culture sensation around it. I'm just gonna say Banjo Kazooie wasn't that good. I played Banjo Kazooie as a child, and it wasn't that good. I don't care if I'm throwing stones at a hornet's nest with that one. Because like the way every motherfucker on YouTube talked about Banjo Kazooie and The Legend of Zelda, it almost made me believe that they were like the most relevant video games of the NES era. But like, no, no, by a long shot, no. Like, yeah, they were relevant, but maybe like the most influential. Hmm. Well, no, the problem with Ocarina of Time is that for as much as everybody oversells it, it is a pretty good fucking game. I did not feel the same way about Banjo Kazooie. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just not built for collectathons. Maybe that's also the problem. But yeah, I don't see how. Again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I don't see how Banjo Kazooie was good enough that like some grifters on Kickstarter could basically sell any old shit and say that, oh yeah, it's a spiritual successor to Banjo Kazooie. Trust us, guys, this one will be the one. It's like Charlie Brown of the football. God, remember when people tried to do that with like Mighty Number 9 and the game was pure ass? I never ended up playing Mighty Number 9 because I was like 9 when it came out. Actually, no, how old was I when Mighty Number 9 came out? 2016 action platformer. Whole saved 90% on Mighty Number 9 on Steam. No, sir, I will not. No, thank you. Okay, so it went to the Kickstarter on September 2013. The game received mixed to negative reviews from critics upon launch, with criticism being directed towards the game's design, graphics, lack of content, voice acting, story, and technical performance on console platforms. What is left? Music? I guess music could be pretty good. I don't know. Was the Mighty Number 9 soundtrack any good? $52 out of 100 on Metacritic. 48 out of 100 on the Wii U port. Christ alive. Police apparently didn't give it too bad of a score. 30 out of 40. That's not bad. The company, Fangamer, the company who were contracted by Concept to fulfill their Kickstarter physical rewards, announced in January 2017 that they were unable to ship all the material to backers due to Concept not giving them all the required assets. Oh, God. I listened to this podcast a little while back, right? Dirty Old Ladies. It's a contrary to what the name might lead you to believe. It's a podcast about making webcomics. It's a pretty good one too. I had a great time listening to it. And one of the things that they discussed is the use of Kickstarter as a platform for funding your comic. And the number one thing that they basically said is, like, the thing that they emphasize the most is that you do not want to, at all costs, you want to try to avoid giving out physical rewards. Because once you do that, the logistical difficulties of your campaign are going to skyrocket. Because if you think, and it makes sense, right? If you think about it, because you have the address that you need to give out, you need to find somebody who ships all your goods for you. You need to turn your home into a warehouse sometimes, if you're willing to do that to begin with, or if you even have the space for that to begin with. You're going to be needing to deal with people who are unhappy with the product or want to return it or want to do something weird that you're not used to because you've never done this before. Like even shipping out stickers, which is relatively risk-free, can be like a daunting task. Like I know some people who ship out stickers as part of like rewards for their streams. Like my friend Miel, she did that a little while back, and she got on great with that. But at the same time, like it's like such a logistical leap. Like you really do need to be careful. And I think the example that they gave on the podcast was of this one friend of theirs who was basically running like a lockpicking lawyer-esque YouTube or book thing, right? Where they had like a little guide on how to lockpick that they were going to publish. And one of the backer rewards is that they made a small lockpicking kit. But the problem is that they set the reward too low and they gave it too many possible backers. So now they had to ship 1,000 of these fucking things. And worse yet, the cost of assembling the kit was greater than the actual cost of like the cost of assembling the kit and shipping it out was actually higher than the cost of was higher than the price that they set the tier 2 in the backer rewards. So that means that they were losing money with each kit that they shipped. And so they ended up like $100 in the hole because, you know, they were losing like 10 cents on each kit, which wasn't a lot, but they had like 1,000 of them to ship out. So they ended up losing money out of the whole, on the whole. I don't know. Whenever you try to monetize something too seriously, you either need to have somebody who is experienced with you, or you need to be like locked in. It makes me very nervous to monetize anything. Not to mention, and bringing this back around to some of the earlier discussion, taxes. Once you're in there, you got to pay your taxes on that stuff. God, I am grateful that I've put most of my stuff through a way that I can like easily track everything. So even stuff that I use for streaming, like my Twitch payouts, I have an easy way to keep track of that. Once I do get around to filing my taxes, which will probably be sometime in the next few weeks, probably first week of April. It's not going to take too long to get all the documents together, thankfully. Last year it was pretty easy, so. Yeah, I remember basically doing it in one morning and then just reaping the rewards the rest of the day. I am quite grateful for people who made it easier to pay your taxes. Like people who maintain programs that help you calculate your taxes and everything, and the resources for that. Y'all are great. Y'all are heroes to me. You will always be famous to me. Weirdly enough, accounting is the one field where I can think of where even Googling something doesn't guarantee that you'll understand it any better. The problem with accounting is that like a bunch of the stuff is hidden within the actual standards themselves, so you need to refer back to those and figure out how to navigate those rather than just try to ask Google. Also, do plug your ears for around 30 seconds and look away from the screen because I'm about to run an ad for that amount of time. All right, I'll see you all on the other side of your. If you have a subscription, you're not going to see these, but so that's fine. But I don't know. Just stay safe out there. For the belly over here. I've talked about this before, where I have mentioned that I sometimes grow concerned that I don't fill in radio silences enough. Right, like if I stop talking for a little while, it takes me too long to get back into the swing of it. But sometimes I take a look at my VODs and I realize that, man, this guy can yap. That's an important skill. But good God, man, relax. I don't know. I do like people who can yap a lot because I feel like if nothing else, I can just have them on in the background, and it's nice that way. I think what I really like are I'm interested. I saw recently that there was this one VTuber who was blown up because they have a history lecture kind of format to their streams, where each stream they talk about they do give like a historical lecture. And what's incredible, first of all, is that they are in fact like they were like an actual honest to god history teacher. They started VTubing as a way to engage their students during virtual classes, which I think kicks a lot of ass. I think if one of my professors had done that during my time learning remotely, I would have pogged so hard. I remember a lot of my teachers from university, but the one I will remember the most, not because of like his course or anything like that, the one that I remember the most will always be one of the professors in my advanced class, because he got laser eye surgery, one of those LASIK things, in the middle of the semester, and so during the lessons he had to wear these super cool looking shades to like let his eyes avoid the blue light and heal properly. Bro looked like Fat Boy Slim, and I was talking about the IFRS standards. Absolutely peak. Hmm. Maybe we can just leave the glasses as is, I think. Should I also like add in his eyes? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Maybe I need to hang on. Let's do this. That's too dark. This should do though. Okay. All right, over here we can add a little bit of like taper off, like was in here. I can't believe I just made the floor of this tent just be like pounded dirt. Quite funny if I'm being honest. Let me tell you, nothing gets a kick out of me quite like. I think it's because there was this one episode of Friends that I watched when I was young in my formative years, where the gang heads to a beachside vacation, and for some reason the first floor of the house is just sand. Like there's no actual floor to the house, so to speak. It's just sand. How inconvenient would it be to live in a house like that? Obviously, the sand upstairs would be a huge problem. I don't know. Would you eventually have to get the sand, and would you have to get the sand changed because of the fact that like eventually even if you like move the sand around a little bit, you're still kind of like accumulating germs in there eventually, right? Like how practical would that be as like a non goof joke laughy haha gag? Not to mention, what about the crabs? You could have a crab just burrow into your house, and you can't do anything about it. The crab is on his home turf. You're completely outmatched here. You try to make crab rangoons out of your new housemate, and you'll end up looking like the that one Elden Ring death animation. You'll end up looking like a CGI effect from Starship Troopers. HS07, hello, welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm Pabs, a rising VTuber and an artist. We're working on a comic page today. How are you? Shout out. Welcome. What are you all up to? As always, if you're feeling a little tuckered out from your own stream, feel free to get some rest. But if you want to stick around and chat, I always appreciate the company. Lies of P, nice. That is such a pretty looking game. I haven't. I'm not a super huge Souls like fan myself, but all the enemy designs and all the character designs for that game are fire. I'm glad to hear you enjoyed yourself. Runs really well, looks gorgeous, and plays super well. Nice. That's the three big things, right? If you can have fun with it, if it looks cool, and if it runs smoothly, that's like all you can ask for from a video game. I'm glad to hear that it went well. I also really like the fact that Life of P is like based on the Pinocchio lore, because I feel like we have a lot of games that base themselves right on like have influences from like old folklore and old myth, but whenever you bring stuff in like from the Grimm tales or stuff like that, I don't know, it scratches a very interesting kind of itch for me. It's like this weird feeling of like both familiarity and like lack of familiarity. Like, oh yeah, I kind of remember those from when I was a kid, but I don't really remember all that much about them. But there's still something that can surprise you. I wonder why this is going over. Hmm. Well, once I shade the table, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And I'm just going to make this whole area here a shadow. Why not? Okay. Hmm. Hey, here's a question. If you ever wanted to see like a fairy tale or like a story you heard when you were young adapted into like a Souls-like game, which one do you think it would be? Like, which one would be your kind of like America, Rachel's next top Soulsborne Red Riding Hood? That's a good one. That's a real good one. I don't have any particular ones in mind myself. Maybe like the three, like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I think that might be interesting. But yeah, Red Riding Hood. That one has a lot. That one has some sauce to it. I like that. Werewolf Hunter in like feudal Germany. Yeah, and like with the Red Riding Hood being like some kind of like Landsknecht, or however you pronounce that word, type armor. That would go hard. That would go real hard. Landsknecht. Landsnitched. My German is not, it is non-existent. But yeah, that sounds sick as hell. I remember there was like a manga that kind of like had some stuff related to Red Riding Hood, but it got axed like a few chapters in, unfortunately. I need to make the purple on this a little less vibrant. I think there was like a tool over here that was called like contrast, whatnot. Brightness / contrast. All right, so let's bump up the brightness and increase the contrast just a little bit. Yeah, that looks more like a shadow than before. Is comic like a contract, a commission, a personal piece? A little bit like a personal piece. I'm working on it with a buddy of mine called Raphael. He did the writing for it, and I've been doing the art for it. I've been working on it for quite a while now. I'm hoping to finish it sometime. This is like page 9 out of 15, so I'm hoping to finish page 15 before June at the latest. Actually, ideally, I'd finish it before May, but I have my. It's not like a priority project for me, so it's something I want to accomplish and I want to get done. But it's not like if I'll die if I don't complete it, right? But I've been having fun with it. It's taught me a lot about using a bunch of different stuff for 3D models. I think that's the one thing that I've learned the most from this comic is making my own props with 3D modeling to make my life easier. I almost don't want to shade the computer parts because they look so nice. But I've got an idea for how to do it. But yeah, the name of the comic is Hawk Starling. You can find it on Twitter right now on my buddy Raph's page. Hang on, let me link my buddy Raph's Twitter. He's been posting it up on his Twitter there. So go check out the comic through there. And yeah, we've been having a lot of fun with it. This is actually the second issue that we've made. I worked on the first issue, and that was actually supposed to be a Kickstarter product that was going to be in a physical book, but unfortunately, the Kickstarter didn't meet its goals, and so now we're just kind of doing our own thing. What I'm going to do here, I think, actually, is I'm going to use a polyline tool and a gradient erase. Actually, yeah, that works. I kind of want to make the figure in here very ambiguous, so I'm going to just try and shade them as much as possible. God, these boots kind of kick a lot of ass. I'm not gonna lie. For a long time now, I've had an ambition to acquire for my own a pair of cowboy boots. I've never ridden a no, I have ridden a horse in my life, not for a particularly long time, but I did ride one. I don't know. I feel like cowboy boots are the one accessory that I feel like I could. It's like, hmm. It's like kind of buying a sword for me, right? Like it's one of those things where you know that it has very little practical use, but it looks cool and you kind of want one. I don't know. I've thought about buying one of those like mall ninja swords, right? But I at the same time I feel like well no, I've thought about buying swords but never one of those like mall ninja swords. I feel like I've been interested in those. Like I like go like ooh at the big shiny mall ninja weapons. But I've never had the urge to buy one myself. I might need that statement fact checked by my family. I might have wanted to do that at some point. No, actually, I don't think I need a fact check. I definitely wanted to do that at some point. Hmm. I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to love swords, but I feel like nowadays I still think. Well, obviously, I still think swords are awesome, but I don't know. I feel like I've changed my taste from like if I had a martial arts weapon, it probably wouldn't be a sword anymore. I don't know. It feels like a piece of me has died in that regard. Like I used to be the guy who was all about swords, and now I'm just not. All right. I think with that, we do need to turn the. Hang on. Did I add the masking layer for a ratio shirt? Yes, I did. That's right. Get your shirt misfrizzled. That's how you get the most out of life. Wait a minute. Oh no. All right. Hmm. There's no easy way to say this. I think I might have worked the perspective on this last panel. Because as you might notice, they're approaching from this side, and this side uh, has her like facing to the side with the computer on. Hmm. We might be having a small problem. Let me check out page 10 real quick to see what makes the most sense. Huh, okay. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate the last panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix up the area here so that you can only you can see the computer, but maybe oh, this one's a toughie. All right, we lock in. I think the best thing to do is to just grab these. It hurts to do this, but that was such a cool looking computer. But the problem is it doesn't make any sense with the perspective. So I need to. I'll get the chance to draw the computer at some point, I reckon. But right now, I need to change up the perspective on this. There's a reason I kept the version of the panel here. It's a surprise tool that'll help us in like I don't know 15 minutes. Might be a little longer, but it will help. All right, we've evicted the previous occupant of the of this tent. Starting bid is $9.99 for rent. This planet is located within the city of New York. God. I like how you can also still perfectly see the computer underneath the shading layer. My bad. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have the barest minimum parts of the computer back here. So it's like a peak of it, just like a tiny little, like the barest hint of a computer is back here. And then meanwhile, we're gonna have a swishy tail poking out out of the depths of the darkness of the tent. Okay, the perspective on this is kind of borking this too, because I feel like the perspective on this makes it look like the person in question is like 12 meters tall. That's much more reasonable. I don't know. I don't think I'd like to be huge, but I'd like to try being huge for at least a little while. I want to see what it's like from Godzilla's perspective for like a minute. I don't need to move or nothing. I can just like wave my arms in the air a little bit, and then I feel like I'll be contented. Gonna head off for some post-stream wind down. We'll keep looking though. Alrighty. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate the raid. I don't know. Being huge as hell for like 5 minutes sounds like I'm basically describing a Super Mario power up. That has not been lost on me. I just realized that as like I was speaking my sentence. I am basically describing like the fantasy of having a Mario power up that lets me be taller. All the time I meet people who wish they were taller or stronger, but very rarely do I meet people who wish they were shorter or weaker. Well, no, granted, I don't think I've met anybody who wishes they were weaker. I don't know, maybe they're out there somewhere. Well, maybe they're not, too. I don't know. Wishing like you were weaker is like a very chuny kind of thing sentiment to me. Well, I can picture it now. Somebody's like ruefully looking at a broken can that they crushed in with their bare hands. They're like, "I'm far too strong for this world." Well, it is true that there are people out there who don't understand their own strength, but that's more of a fact that they can't like control it rather than like they wish they were weaker. I think. Hmm. On the other hand, I think it would also be way easier to get weaker than to get shorter. You know, like getting shorter would involve having like knee, like I don't know, knee surgery, but I don't think that would help. Is the problem? But yeah, you would need to like transform your body much more drastically than if you wanted to be weak. Because I think if you wanted to be weak, you would just like need to not use your muscles very often. The problem is that certain muscles are very difficult to get rid of, I think. You know, like for example, from what I understand, cardio muscle is actually quite easy to be rid of. Like because your heart beats so often, right? It's always renewing itself and making sure it doesn't tear itself apart. So it actually cycles through its cells and what have you very quickly. Conversely, something like your biceps or your shoulder muscles or any kind of like skeletal muscles, I guess, are supposedly much more easy to keep a grip on. Like I still, I spent like one summer when I was like 17, teaching myself how to box with a sandbag and just like doing exercise in my family's basement because it was like a really nice little space for myself and I had fun in there. But and I still have muscles from that. Like that was like the summer that I got big. So it is much. So I can attest that it's easier to keep on muscle mass once you've gained it. It's actually quite difficult to lose. Not to mention you kind of just get the urge to move around sometimes, right? But yeah, we've solved the crisis, thankfully. Now we don't have some kind of a continuity issue where she's suddenly done like a 30-degree flip in the last frame. I don't know. If somebody could turn around that fast, I would be impressed. I wouldn't even be mad. All right, how do I? Okay, so I want to have her face get like really well framed with the shadow. I'm just wondering how to go about that. How do I give this like one of the most chiaroscuro possible? Hmm. Whoops, forgot a spot here. Hmm. Let me play around with the contrast on this shadow. Because the problem is that the one that I used earlier is a bit much. May increase the brightness and lower the contrast a little. That one feels pretty good. This feels nice and dramatic. Do I have a chorus reference here? Is the middle of her throat? Okay, yeah. The middle of her throat also has a that like lizard skin scaly thingamajig. I should learn more about like what certain lizard body parts are called. I feel like that'll be a valuable thing to understand. They've got to have all kinds of cool names, right? Like like the thing you need to understand is that a lot of lizard biology shares elements of like dinosaur biology, and dinosaur biology terms generally tend to kick ass. My personal favorite being Thagomizer, the word for like the spiked club on like on like I don't know a Stegosaurus tail or something. which was first coined not by a scientist but by Gary Larson's Far Side comic, where he was like pretending a bunch of cavemen were having like some kind of scientific conference discussing like the biological parts of a stegosaurus, and one of the cavemen is like, this here part is called the thagomizer on account of Phineas Thag, the guy who got crushed by it the first time in all of human recorded history. I don't know. Can you still say it's the first time in recorded history if you guys don't actually record said history? Probably not, right? Like, there's got to be some kind of like you can say it for dramatic effect, but it won't be true. Oh, hang on. This might be a good idea. Yeah, just like do the shoulder muscle, and then yeah. Okay. I just realized why Gora's face here is bothering me so much. She doesn't have nostrils. Yeah, she normally has nostrils. I had to double check just to make sure, but yeah, she's got them. What if I use a soft eraser down here? Okay, no, overdoing it with a soft eraser is a bad call. Maybe with like the gradient erase. No, that just looks even stranger. Yeah, maybe the issue was that I wasn't giving it enough room. Actually, come to think of it, couldn't I just kind of reach over and hold on? Did I use the shading for this one? This is a solution I hadn't considered. Just make the shading color a little bit lighter and let the kind of dramatic shadow it casts speak for itself. That might be the way to go. That might be the way to go. Let's try it like that then. Hmm. All right, just a little bit off the shoulder here. Very good. Do we also have a shadow for the shirt? No, that one was just plain white over here. Well, we got to make it a little bit quieter here. Actually, might even add a secondary shadow to it just to keep de-emphasizing it. I almost feel like adding a secondary shadow to this color here too. Just for the snout here. Hold on, this might be good. This is actually kind of good. Maybe just a little blended. There we go. Okay, add a line here so that the fill tool doesn't escape. I feel so vindicated having changed that last panel, honestly. It just feels so much more... I don't even have the words to describe it. I feel good about being able to make a change like that on the fly. Although I'd prefer not to make a habit of it, if at all possible. Okay. We can have a few details here and there. I really love chunky old computers. I know they ain't practical and that they're infinitely outclassed by what we have nowadays, right? But there's still something very charming about them. Something about their boxiness that really appeals to me. I don't know, maybe it's because every computer we see nowadays is all very sleek and shiny and whatnot. Maybe having a computer that looks like how do I put it? Like having a computer that looks more chunky and such makes it feel almost like friendly. Right? Because I've like, you know, we had chunky computers because of the fact that we needed that much space for them. Right? The components inside of the computer just needed that much space. But then we started switching over to like more sleek looking laptops, which kind of reached ahead with like stuff like the MacBook Airs and what have you, where the whole where the whole appeal of it was to have it be as light as possible at the expense of its functionality. I hate MacBook Airs. Even before, even like back when I was forced to be a Mac user for school, I hated. I heavily dislike MacBook Airs. What do you mean you don't have USB ports? Everybody's got a USB port. Dipshit, it came free with your computer. At least I don't think it had USB ports. I remember it didn't have something. Actually, it probably doesn't have a lot of things. God, I don't even want to imagine what a MacBook Air looks like nowadays. It probably looks like one of those. It's like comparing one of those like pictures of like pugs in the 1800s to pugs now, and you can see how like their faces got squished beyond recognition at some point due to various genetic mishaps and inbreeding. It's not a great scene. Actually, you know what? I'll bite. I'll bite. Let me see. What is up with the MacBook Airs? What does the most recent MacBook Air product look like? Oh, do I see 0 USB ports on that thing? I think I do. It's all just lightning cables. Where are you going to connect those headphones, big guy? You can't connect them to nothing. God. All right. All right, I'm done poking fun of this thing. I have a comic page I need to get back to work on. I don't know. I try to avoid being too much of a hater, but sometimes it jumps out when it comes to technology like this. I don't know. Being in the same room as people who own smartwatches has done something to me. I think if you ever meet somebody like just out in the wild who has one of those fancy new Apple AR goggles that you keep hearing about, you need. I feel like it'll be like in Yakuza 0 when you see like a Novo Riche enemy and you just immediately go in for the kill. Like, ain't no way anybody's like for the at least 5 years, for the first 5 years or so of their existence, assuming they don't get discontinued immediately because of like some kind of SAO adjacent brain melt virus mishap. Assuming they survive that long, you're not going to be able to wear one outside for at least 5 years. No, sir, you're going to get fucking robbed. Like every single time, like my parents talk to me about my home country, and every single time they say something to the effect of, "Yeah, you basically can't walk outside with your phone in your hand because somebody will try to rob it from you." And I feel like that sentiment is going to become something of a familiar feeling for those of you in the first world. If you walk outside with this fucking ski goggle helmet thing where adorned on your head. I don't know, how comfy is it? Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of weight on your head, you know? I'm not going to say it's always good. It's probably not great for your neck, but there's something like comforting about a certain amount of weight on your head. Probably because it's like close to being a helmet. Maybe it'll have like that kind of comforting weight, you know, you'll feel like your noggin's a little bit protected. Okay, that's going to go like this. And we're just going to select this so we can... There we go. Oh man, did I forget to fill tool the cloth scrap? I definitely did. I cannot forget the cloth scrap. It's his mark of charm now. It's his gap moe. Shoulders probably shouldn't work that way with a normal shirt, but I'm going to ignore that. If you ask me, every single shirt produced by man should have built-in shoulder pads. I have a blazer, right? when I first got my office job, I bought myself a nice little gray, kind of dusty gray. It's got like some kind of quilted pattern on it. This blazer that I really like. I don't get to wear it very often because I found out very quickly that in the office, if you wear a blazer, you're basically either saying I'm a very important person or I'm a very self-important person. The office dress code is 100% like just business casual. You know, you put on some slacks, you put on a shirt, no tie necessary. You're good to go. That kind of made me sad at first because I was looking forward to wearing a tie, but the problem is that I found out a lot of the shirts that I own aren't. I have a big neck, theoretically speaking. You know, assuming I had one, I would have a rather thick neck. So unfortunately, ties are kind of a hassle for me. I don't know. I should look into getting myself like a nice shirt and seeing if I can't get them to like I don't know. Do they sell shirts with extra wide necks? The problem with mass production of clothing is that if you're not of a very specific size and shape that is expected for the product that you're buying, you're kind of out of luck. And I know that this is something that a lot of like fat people are voicing is that they want to buy these cool looking clothes, but they almost never come in sizes that are appropriate for them. You know, they have one for like super skinny people, but like almost never for like fat people. And well, obviously that sucks. I don't know. I didn't used to like fashion very much because it felt like I always did the wrong thing. But after I started looking at it as more like as an expression of what you want to, less so as like a social standard and more so of like a way for you to express yourself, I started having a lot more fun picking and choosing my clothes. Granted, for a few years, my wardrobe mainstays were just Hawaiian shirts, but you know what? Those made me happy, so I don't really regret that. I still have a bunch of floral print shirts and whatnot. I Whenever I went to the Value Village, I would always just scoop up the ugliest one I could find. And here's the thing: even though I always got the ugliest one, every single one that I got was fire. You owe yourself the luxury of dressing weird from time to time. Whether or not you pull it off is irrelevant. As long as you can say, yeah, I wore that. Maybe it wasn't for me, but I wore that. I don't know. I feel like you can live on without regrets more properly. Okay. Add this here. Add this here. Add a little bit of light for the knuckles over here. The boots will also need a little bit of tender loving care. I never understood what boots are supposed to feel like on your feet. Like I have plenty of understanding for like for example how running shoes are supposed to feel on your feet because I wore running shoes pretty much exclusively growing up. You know, I tried wearing sneakers for a while, but that never really worked out for me. Probably something with to do with the shoelaces. I hated shoelaces growing up. Oops. But yeah, I had a tough time with laces, but I only have like one pair of like boots, and they feel decent, but I don't know if that's how boots are supposed to feel. Like that's the issue I think with, or like that rather, that's the benefit of trying out a bunch of different shoes when you're in a shoe shop and making sure they all fit right. Like it's not just finding the one shoe. I think it's also good for getting an idea of like what shoes are supposed to feel like. Come to think of it, it's been a while since I've gone shoe shopping. I don't really have a need for new shoes just yet. The ones that I have right now are in pretty decent condition. Maybe it's finally time to get those cowboy boots that I was talking about. Yeah, what the hell? Next time I visit, if I get to visit my parents this year, I'm going to buy a pair of cowboy boots when I'm with them. Okay. Yeah, the horns over here would cast a shadow. Okay, why is that not closing the gap? There we go. I kind of like having the glasses be completely lit up. I'm not gonna lie. That feels pretty good. All right, I'm gonna need to pull up Hawks. I think we might be able to finish this page tonight. I just gotta do one last little push. Hell, I bet I can finish it before the next ad break. Oh right, I removed Hawk from this picture. Let me put her back. I can't see her pants in this one. Okay, there we go. Just need to get the right shade for the pants. Oh god, I forgot the bombs in the last panel. Never mind. We might not clutch this before the next ad break. All right. Okay, speed run. One of the things that I found out that I figured out about myself is that I say a lot that oh I'm locking in, I'm gonna lock in, I better lock in, I'm locked in. You know, I talk a good game about that, but weirdly enough, I feel like I like even if I lock in, my productivity doesn't change. Like I'm always giving it all I got. It's a strange feeling. Not a particularly good one, but it is what it is. I've mentioned this before. The best part of all of these pages for me is definitely going to be shading in the little frag grenades. There's something so cool about them. Just like this rotund shape they've got. They remind me a lot of a disc. Which makes sense because they are in the shape of a disc. All right, then moving on to the other one. Actually, one more thing that I need to add in here, just before we move on. Gotta add the dots on Hawk's backpack. Make that a little bit bigger. Thankfully, this is the only one. This is the only panel where I'll need to add that effect. I think I also forgot the shade on her leather helmet belt strap thing. But that's an easy fix. Okay, just kind of all along the lines here. I need to not be bothered by those little lines right now. I'll get to them later. I know that they'll resolve themselves pretty much immediately once I finish adding the other colors, but they do bug me. I don't even. Oh wait, it's because I've got the area scaling turned up. My fault. Okay, then using the shading on the jetpack for the gun. That's right, and then oh shoot, I might also. I mean, if it's this small, I'm not gonna add the what do you call the God, this is really taking me a minute. The little dots, the toning effect on those. High five, brain. Finally got it. Wait, maybe I can hack this a little bit by just adding a little specks of. Hang on, I need to finish shading them first, and then I'll do this trick. Why is this not working? Oh, right, I haven't saved in like 3 minutes. 30 minutes. 3 hours? Probably 3 hours. I should save. Okay, then over here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, next let's do the helmet, the jetpack, and everything else. Okay. Shrink this down. Grab the helmet shading. Ad starts in 57 seconds. Not if I can have anything to say about it. We are gonna need to like fast exit out of here once I finish these last couple bits. Yeah, that should be this page done. My goodness. We have done some fine work today. Where are these images at? Where is it coming from? Oh, there it is. Okay, the page is finished. Whew. And just in time to skirt through the last ad. Let's see who all is streaming right about now. Oh wow, bunch of people. Damn, they're really working out here. Oh, V's playing Fighter Z. Let's go say hi to her. All right. Thanks everybody for coming by. I will be back on Thursday. Hopefully the counter redeem will have worked then. But otherwise, have a good rest of your day. I'll see you all later. Bye.